Spana.
And Dominik Teiml.
Can you say the name again? The interrogation.
Pick up this.
Coffee? Mrs. Baxter, we have evidence to believe that your husband, Patrick Loner Baxter, did not commit suicide. Judging from the shape and size of the wound, there is no way Mr. Baxter could have committed suicide. Also, the bullet found does not match the gun found in his hand. Now, you were the first one to report this murder to the police. Am I right? You and Mr. Baxter were separated at that time. What were you doing there?
Yes. My husband and I were separated. I called Patrick that afternoon and told him I'd be stopping by to collect some family heirlooms. By the time I got there, he was already... I called the police as soon as I could.
Am I right that Mr. Baxter was the owner of Baxter Medical Institute?
Yes.
And is it also true that Mr. Baxter borrowed huge amounts of money
Wait,
to support
what?
his position in this institute?
He was borrowing money? So he was broke? Penniless?
Yes. In fact, he was millions in debt. Now, you and Mr. Baxter were separated. Why?
We are going to tell the divorce papers next week.
Ah, yes. Your marriage certificate says that you were married for 11 months and 24 days. Am I right?
Yes.
And it also clearly states that after a year of marriage, you are entitled to half of your husband's savings. But anything less than that, and you don't get anything. Right?
I suppose.
But state law, however, states that the deceased, if has no heir, the spouse will receive full control over property and bank accounts. But since Mr. Baxter owed millions, his institute and house are now worthless and owned by the bank. Mrs. Baxter, could you have not murdered your husband to take control of his institute and bank accounts, saying you didn't know about his debts?
I didn't know that Patrick was in debt, and neither did I want his money. I realized that Patrick was getting into illegal business and wanted to get away from it. By the time I was living at Baxter residence, there was a message on the answering machine. I recorded and wanted to give it to the police, but Patrick wouldn't let me. He said it was nothing serious.
Can you identify the speaker?
Yes. His name is Dan Smith. I saw him outside Baxter residence when the police arrived.
I have a license for that.
Mr. Daniel Smith, we have reason to believe that you were connected to the murder of Patrick Leonard Baxter. We have an eyewitness report saying that you were seen at the crime scene before the police arrived. Is this or is this not your voice?
Pick up the phone, Patrick. Pick up the goddamn phone. You better pay me the money, or there'll be dire consequences.
Yeah, that is my voice. Patrick and I knew each other. We used to play poker together downtown. I was very distressed to hear about his death.
But he owed you a lot of money.
Yes, he did owe me a lot of money. He was going to pay me back on the day of his murder. He called me in the morning and asked me to stop by. I drove to the house, but it was full of police officers. So I decided to come back later.
In the tape, to speak of consequences. What kind of consequences did you mean?
I was just trying to scare him a bit, you know, make him pay up. I never asked what he wanted the money for. It was just business.
When we were at the house, we found no evidence of him having any kind of way to repay you. No cases of cash, no checks. It almost seems to me like you knew he didn't have the money.
I'm a patient man. Hard-working. Nice family. Why would I throw that away for a few $1,000s?
Indeed. Why? Are these your medical records?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacqueline Hyde. Patrick Leonard Baxter was murdered last Saturday. These files were found on his desk. May you please explain why Patrick Leonard Baxter had your personal medical files and what he intended to do with them? And also, what were you doing at the crime scene? Policemen saw you looking through the window.
I was once a patient at Baxter Medical Institute. Mr. Baxter wrongfully diagnosed me with multiple personality disorder. He said,
Yes?
I recently applied for a job, and Mr. Baxter didn't want to give me my medical files. He wouldn't admit that he was wrong in his diagnosis, and kept them with the wrong data. He threatened to publish them if I didn't pay him $250,000 for Saturday.
He was blackmailing you? You don't like the type of person who has $250,000.
He was very, very desperate for the money. He was crazy by that time himself, probably. He was gonna publish them and make a fool out of me. I went to the house to see if maybe we could get to some kind of arrangement, you know, sort something out.
Why didn't you tell this to the police?
Tell this to the police? Tell this to police? He said he would publish my file and completely ruin my future. I wasn't going to risk my whole career on his financial problems. What were you doing at the crime scene before the police arrived. I thought I recognized you. It was you in that car outside his house, was it not?
No, how does this relate to the case?
What were you? You, a police interrogator, doing at the crime scene before the police? Could you not have just as easily picked up your gun and shot the bastard?
You're mad! Yeah, why would a respectable police investigator kill a Patrick Baxter?
Oh, Patrick, not too clever. Patrick often talks in the Institute. He liked to talk about a particular police officer. What was your name again?
Frederick Stevens.
Yeah, I thought so. Oh, Mr. Frederick. He wasn't too careful when mentioning the bribes you took from him.
That's enough! Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, now it's up to you to decide which one of these suspects killed Patrick Leonard Baxter.
Julie?
Was it his wife, Mrs. Baxter,
Yes.
Dan, or Jacqueline Hyde?
Dan.
Julie?
Dan.
Julie? You?
Wait, now!